They say that meditation is the preparation for death. Death, the end of life, an irreversible process that many have tried to prevent. But in the thousands of years humans been on this earth, it's the one thing that's guaranteed for everyone. It's an uncomfortable topic for many, and even a foreign concept for some. I never really understood it, because my first experience with death was when I was 10. My Nana, my Nona, my grandma. It was the first time in my life where I experienced real, intense grief. The feeling of waking up and a person not being there. Someone who was such a big part of my life who was just gone. Lately, I've been thinking a lot about my death, but not in the way you may think. Just let me explain. Hello, my lovelies. Today's video is going to be an interesting one, to say the least. Recently, I've been thinking a lot about my death. Death is such a taboo thing that I think we actively try to avoid, especially when it comes to like rich billionaires who like their whole identity is based off the fact that they're trying to avoid death. I've noticed since I've been starting to meditate more, journal more, I've been so fascinated with the idea of my death. It's so weird because it's not in the way that it used to be. When I was a teenager, I was really depressed, and honestly, death felt like a way out of my life. The only way out, truthfully. I had such little value on my life and my existence, and I didn't think me dying would have an effect on anybody around me. Now when I think about my death, I think of it in a completely different light. I recently wrote something in my journal that I wanted to read to you guys. I went out and had a beach day with my family. I was with my nephew, who I haven't spent a lot of time with, and it changed something in my brain. And I said, seeing my nephew makes me so conscious of the fact that my existence has influence on people. My existence has an influence on people. There's so many ways to realize that you being has an influence or an effect on another person. I constantly looked at my existence in such a negative light. Like there was always something wrong with me. Being around my nephew, someone who I've met from like being born to now going into elementary school, he's able to express his feelings and interact with the rest of the world, and this is someone who I've been around since he was a newborn. And for some reason that instance made me realize that maybe I should rethink the way I'm approaching my life. When I talk about my death, I think more of what do I want to be remembered by? When I take my last breath, what are people going to remember about me? If I die tomorrow, what's the first thing that'll pop in my head? Will I have lived a life that I truly dreamed of? Would I say that I lived my life to its full capacity? Sometimes I think that I'm not doing that. I think I'm so focused on setting things up in my life for other people, like savings, that I feel like I spend most of my days surviving and not living. A part of me doesn't want to be remembered like that. I've always dreaded the idea of me waking up one day living this white picket fence life where I'm sitting in a home next to a partner that I've been miserable with. That is a struggle of mine. I stay in relationships longer than I should for the sake of bringing others comfort, and I just am afraid that one day I'm going to wake up in a life filled with everybody else's comforts and not my own. I know it's weird. Everybody has their own dream life and things that they're passionate about and things that they enjoy. But I've never been the type of person who wanted to look back at my life and think that the only thing I succeeded in was bringing happiness and comfort to other people and not myself. I recently watched Tracy Ellis Ross solo travel show, and in the intro she talks about how she went on her first solo trip when she was around 24 and 25, and that experience made her so hyper aware of the fact that she's responsible for her own happiness. I am responsible for my own happiness. As I think about all the people that I've lost and all the losses that I've gone through in my life, I think about what would they think about my life. It's so weird to think like that and to even care what other people think, whether they've lived or whether they're living or passed on. But I do wonder that if maybe I'm living more of my life in comfort or in the idea of what a good life is for other people than my own. I think most of the people around me think that a good life is just stability, the white picket fence life, owning a home, owning a car, starting a family, having a 401k, decent health insurance. I don't know, the white picket fence life. And at first, I felt really guilty of not wanting my life to be that way, especially as a woman in society. It's kind of more of the expectation, and anyone who goes against that is kind of seen as like a weird cat lady. Granted, I am kind of a weird cat lady, but it has nothing to do with the fact that I don't want kids and I don't really crave the idea of being married to one person for the rest of my life. I mean, I tried it didn't work out, and truthfully the idea of it didn't bring me much joy even while I was in it. It's just so weird to be the type of person that kind of goes against the grain early in my life, especially when I was struggling a lot with my depression as a teenager. Death seemed like the only way out because it felt like the life I wanted for myself went against the idea of all the people around me. There was no changing their mind of what they expected of me. I thought maybe the only thing to do was to just end it all, which is such a weird thing to think. To think that the purest form of myself was the main reason why I didn't want to be here in the first place. I think as I'm getting older, I'm starting to realize that maybe a majority of my life I didn't need to be understood. I just needed to be seen. And I don't think a lot of people truly saw me for who I was to my core. I think once you peel some layers, I think I make a lot of people uncomfortable, and just my ideas and my dreams and the life that I want for myself makes a lot of people uncomfortable. Granted, it makes me very uncomfortable being around someone who's known me their whole life, even though it hasn't necessarily been that long. In that moment, I was so consciously aware of my existence and how much it could influence the people around me. And being so consciously aware of my existence made me wonder, what do I expect from it? And I think I expect a lot. And I think that's okay. I don't know. But going back into the conversation of death, it made me realize that I look at it a little bit differently than a lot of people around me. I look at life as the journey that prepares you for death. In a way, death is like nostalgia. To live a life that brings you so much joy, to live a life that fuels you, that burns a fire in your core, a life that you know you could take with you beyond life. I think that's what life is supposed to be about. This constant replay of the people you've influenced, the people you've been around, even the negative aspects. I think death is like a constant replay of that. In me, thinking of death in that way, it made me start to wonder about my life and how I'm living it. And I will admit, lately I've been feeling as if I've been spending most of my time surviving and doing comfortable things and not doing the things that I truly want to do. And it's a hard thing to admit, truthfully, but now that I'm reaching my quarter life and like going through a quarter life crisis, oh my god, I didn't even think of that. Maybe I am. 25 years of being alive, looking at things very differently. My frontal lobe is developing. I'm sure a lot of people who are like living in their 20s in this environment, like the socioeconomical issues of the world right now, like I know they're probably feeling the same way, where they just live their life in survival, not actually living it to their true being. It seems like living your dream life is such a luxury nowadays, and it becomes really draining. And I think in the world of social media, it's great, but the parts that it sucks at is when you constantly see people your age or younger doing all the things that you wanted to do tenfold. Like they've done a million and one more things with their life, and I think it's so easy to compare who you are to what other people are, glorified versions of it and not necessarily the real raw reality of it. Even with me trying to be as authentic as I can be with it with social media, that's because that's always been my dream, to have people watch my content and consume my content and my content actually be the purest form of me. But let's be real, a camera in most situations is not necessarily the reality, especially when you're filming personal moments. No amount of gigabytes in a Sims card is ever going to be able to show you the actual feeling of what it's like to be in a situation. And yes, you could do post editing to try to, you know, stir up those feelings in other people, but truthfully, it's not the reality for a lot of people. So that's why I say it's better not to compare yourself to others, because I think when you're finally taking your final moments and you're taking your final breath and you're sitting there and your life's replaying in your head, I don't think those other people are really going to matter at that point. I think everyone's journey is different, and I think sometimes we underestimate the importance of the journey. I guess that's kind of how I'm looking at my life now. I think my life is the journey leading me to my death, and that's just the reality of it. It sounds very morbid, and I guess it is, but I don't necessarily look at death as such a negative thing anymore. Not how I used to. For the last 4 to 5 years, every year of my life, someone close to me has passed on, which is crazy to say and to think, actually. So I think from someone who's gone through it so much, it's definitely changed my perspective on a lot of things. And one thing that it's changed my perspective on the most is how I want to continue and live. Sometimes I limit myself by telling myself that who I want to be in life and the dreams that I want to succeed in, try to limit myself by telling myself that it's too much. And then I go back into thinking, and I take my final breaths, and my life is replaying in my head. Would I rather be the version of myself that limits myself, or would I rather be the version of myself that at least tried to live out my dreams? I think I'm gonna pick the second one. I find that sometimes we focus a little bit too much on the discomforts of our life. I think maybe sometimes we need to focus on where those discomforts are bringing us and what would happen if we pushed past them. And I guess that's so weird because I kind of related it to death in this case, just because I've kind of been thinking a lot about it lately. And I know death is a very uncomfortable thing to talk about, but even sitting here watching this video and watching me talk about death multiple times, maybe even that caused you to push past your discomfort and maybe learn something new about me, or hear something that made you learn something new about yourself. I think that's the beauty of doing these random talking, rambling videos, is sometimes I make a good point. Most of the time I think it's just rambling and it doesn't make sense. But sometimes I do make good points. I don't know. This is what you guys tell me. I don't know. This is probably a really weird video, but a part of me thinks that I owe it to the people that I've lost within the last couple of years to at least try, which is why the next couple of months may look a little different, because I think I'm finally ready to push past my discomfort and kind of get out of survival mode. And in order to do that, a lot of change happens. I think within the last couple of months, this whole year I've been constantly changing, which is great because I'm definitely going to be approaching my 25th birthday as someone who I actually want to be. I don't know how I'm gonna feel on my birthday, truthfully, but I know for the last couple birthdays I bawled my eyes out because I genuinely hated the person I was and who I was becoming. And for the first time in my life, I actually am happy about who I'm becoming, because I think I'm living more authentically myself, and I'm talking about things that make me uncomfortable, like death, and how I relate death to my life and its journey. If I have any advice for you guys, even if you think that there is a slim chance that making a certain decision would change your life in a way that you would want it to change, I think it's worth it. Think about it. If you are approaching the end of your life and you're taking your last breaths, which situation would you rather think about? The fact that you didn't take the chance on something that you cared about, or the fact that you did and you went on this journey and maybe you didn't make it to the destination you wanted to make it to, but you still took the step? You still took the chance. You still pushed past your discomforts, and truthfully, the journey of discomfort is a very long journey, but it's one that you'll remember forever. Death to my early 20s, I guess you could say. This is what this video represented. So I don't know if anything I said made sense, and I don't know if anyone who's listening actually cares or thinks that anything I said made sense, but I hope that resonated with at least one person. And I didn't sound like a crazy cat lady. I don't know. Anyways, that's it for today. Bye, my lovelies.